Hey, how's everybody doing? RMJ Movie Reviews back again. This time with another movie review. I decided to kind of reach into my VHS collection since I'm talking about, stuff from the past, and I decided to review an older film that stars Sean Connery and Wesley Snipes called Rising Sun. That is the VHS tape from when this film actually first came on video. This movie was made during kind of the Wesley Snipes canon, when Wesley Snipes was fresh off Passenger 57 and New Jack City. And this is when Wesley Snipes was cool, before he became a tax evasion joke. And Sean Connery, I believe at his time, I think Sean Connery was only in his late 50s at that time, maybe mid-late 50s. And I did actually see this film. I remember wanting to see this film really bad at the time when it came out. And I think this film came out, if I remember right, I think it was the summertime. Somebody out there because this was 1993, so I was 11 years old when this movie came out. But I think this movie came out in July or August. I could be wrong. Somebody who's an adult who's out there seeing my video, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But I remember I really wanted to see this movie because it was just like, oh man, and I was aware enough of Sean Connery at the time. I knew him mostly from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade and a couple of other films that I had seen when I was a real little kid, but it didn't register to me at the time that he was James Bond. I mean, to me, Roger Moore was James Bond, because I grew up in the 80s and he was the Bond, and then it was Timothy Dalton. So really, in me living on the planet, there was only two Bonds, and then Pierce Brosnan came along like by the time I was a teenager. But either way, I remember me and my best friend, a guy named Nick, we were at a family reunion and they had a movie theater in the mall, and I remember my dad laid a couple bucks on us and bought tickets for us, and we went to go see Rising Sun. And I remember at the time really thinking that this movie is slow. It's slow. And I love Wesley Snipes. I like Sean Connery. But this movie's slow. and upon rewatching it now as an adult, I still feel the same way about Rising Sun. I just kind of, the whole, it's a murder mystery of, some chick who was like a freak. And I guess the whole thing is there's like kind of the Japanese business culture kind of taking over the American business culture, and how they're kind of at odds. And there's, the murder mystery of this freak. It kind of intertwines this whole East versus West kind of business takeover thing. And, Wesley Snipes is like kind of a typical tough, take no crap prisoners kind of cop. And Sean Connery is kind of, he's a part of kind of the Japanese culture, and he knows how to relate to them, and he's friends with a lot of that culture and all that kind of stuff. So they team up together and they investigate this murder mystery, which I might add, I even watched it more as an adult. I think the biggest problem with this movie for me is, number one, it's too long. I mean, I just finished watching this thing. This thing is 2 hours and like 5 minutes. This movie came out in 1993, so kind of if somebody was to watch it now, and I grew up in this era, so, I can watch the film and remember back when a lot of this technology was brand new. And the funny thing about the whole, when the mystery is solved, nowadays, it wouldn't have even took them to solve the mystery as long as it does in this movie. That just shows you that this movie came out in the early 90s, because there's like stuff in the movie where like they take characters' faces and change laser discs, it's 90s people, and put faces on top of another face and all this kind of thing. And there's, at one point in the movie, a character goes, it takes 5 hours to put a face on another face of this pixel and that pixel. And it's so hilarious because anybody could just go on Final Cut in any program in a Mac computer now and just go click, and that's done in literally like 5 minutes. So, but again, I grew up in this, and funny thing is looking at people's cell phones in this movie too. I mean, there's a lot of things in this movie that could have been solved very easily nowadays, if it wasn't for the technology at the time. But as far as the mystery aspect, number one, I was an 11-year-old child when I saw this film. So, I was enough into movies at the time that I was, like I said, I was a really big Wesley Snipes fan. Wesley was like really the only black action hero for my age group at that time. Because I didn't grow up in the 70s and I didn't have all those other guys. So I was really excited to see the film. I think this was a blip on kind of Wesley's film radar at the time when Wesley was really popular. I think this movie and Boiling Point were just the two movies from that era that I just really, still to this day, don't really like. I thought that both films were boring. And I just kind of feel like the first act I thought was okay. I was kind of with it, wondering like, hey, where's this going to go? But the movie just kind of it goes on and it goes on and it goes on. And it just, I'd probably say about the middle of the second act, the movie just started to lose me. And it brought me back to even when I remember seeing it at the theater, me and my best friend. It started to lose me about the same time again. It just... And another big thing I have about... I didn't think the mystery was that interesting. You don't really get to know this girl who was murdered. And really, she's just kind of a... I don't know, I can't remember the term, a red herring. It really doesn't even matter because she's really just a plot device. You're not really meant to know much about her, and you don't really care about her. She's really just a plain old-fashioned freak who likes to be choked and all this kind of stuff. And none of the whole choking, asphyxiation thing figures into the plot. It's just there just to kind of put a little bit of sex and violence into the movie, which is kind of really, honestly, about the only interesting thing, along with kind of that early 90s technology in it. But it's just a really slow movie. Another big thing I have, and I have this kind of gripe with movies, is I hate when they have films that are thriller mysteries or whatever, and I can understand that they want to tell the story and take the subject matter seriously, but I hate when you have long stretches in thrillers without physical action. And I know you could hear people crowd day and say, oh, you just want an action film. No, but you have to have physical action to break the monotonous. I mean, I think a good example is like The Departed. You know what I mean? That film is basically dialogue driven, but the characters are so interesting that and The Departed does have physical action breaks in between to kind of spice it up a little bit. But this movie goes on and on and on. The action sequences that they do have are very short. They're not really actiony. They're filmed in a very flat and uninteresting... I have a big thing about movies where characters pull out guns and they don't use them. Because I remember when this movie was advertised, they had cool shots of like Wesley loading guns and nothing... I hate that when they do that. Wesley's doing all this stuff, never uses the gun. There's a lame karate fight where Wesley's showing some technique, Sean Connery, but again, it just kind of happens and stops. And I think in these thrillers, you should have moments of physical action to spice it up, because the mystery in this film is really not that interesting. The only thing that really keeps me interested in this film is the fact that Wesley was at his career high. Sean Connery is interesting. Harvey Keitel, the beautiful Tia Carrere, Steve Buscemi, Cary Tawaga, I think is how you pronounce his name, who's in Showdown Little Tokyo, American Me, tons of television shows and action movies. It's just really, at the end of the day, I just think Rising Sun is just not a very interesting thriller, a really sluggish and boring mystery picture. The only thing I can give it is the production values, where you won't notice a lot of locations from Predator 2 and Die Hard, because it's a 20th Century Fox movie, and the cast. That's really the only reason to watch this film. I just think this is a boring, uninteresting movie with really good actors and lavish production values. So that's my review of retro review of Rising Sun. I'm going to be back again. I'm not sure what I'm going to review next, but I'll surprise you guys and come up with some kind of cool video or some kind of cool something. I think I might review White Man Can't Jump, because I'm kind of on reviewing some old stuff from the past. So that's my review, retro review of Rising Sun, starring Wesley Snipes and Sean Connery. You guys can check out that movie if you want to at your own risk, if you can make it through it. I barely could now or then when I first saw it. So, alright. RMJ Movie Reviews. I'll be back later. Appreciate for you guys subscribing.